My boyfriend told his friends he'd rather die than marry me. So I moved out without a word and the night I found out, I wasn't even supposed to be awake. It was past midnight. Daniel thought I was asleep in his bedroom. I had come out quietly to get a glass of water, barefoot, half asleep, not thinking about anything except the dryness in my throat. And then I heard his voice from the living room, low and laughing, and I stopped. Something made me stop. Not suspicion, I had never been a suspicious person. Just something in the tone. Something that made my feet go still before my brain caught up. I stood in the dark hallway and listened to the man I had loved for 3 years say the words that would end everything. Marry Sarah. Bro, I'd rather die. Laughter. Easy, comfortable laughter, the kind that comes from people who have no idea anyone is listening. Someone said harsh and laughed anyway. Daniel kept going. Said something about how she was fine for now, but not the one. Someone asked what that meant. He paused, just briefly, and then said, with a casualness that was somehow worse than cruelty, she's comfortable. She's just there. You know. His friends knew. They laughed again. I stood in that hallway and felt something inside me go completely, utterly quiet. Not shattered, quiet. The way a room goes quiet after a sound you cannot unhear. I was not crying. I was not shaking. I was simply standing there, holding nothing, understanding everything, while the man in the next room laughed with his friends and had absolutely no idea his whole relationship had just ended. I went back to the bedroom. Lay down on my side of the bed, my side, the left, the one I had claimed so naturally over 3 years that it had simply become mine without discussion. I stared at the ceiling. I listened to his laughter fade, to the call end, to his footsteps in the hall. He came to bed, checked his phone one last time, and fell asleep within minutes. Peacefully. Completely undisturbed. And while he slept, I made a decision. Calm, clear, and final, the way only the most important decisions are made. Not in anger. Not in tears. In the particular stillness that arrives when you finally stop hoping you misheard something. Daniel and I had been together since my 2nd year of university. 3 years, 4 months, not that I was counting, except that I was, because I am the kind of person who notices everything and says very little. I had met his mother. Attended his cousin's wedding as his partner. Cooked in his kitchen so many times I knew which burner ran hot and which drawer held the spare batteries. I had learned the small geography of his life and quietly made myself at home inside it. And he had let me. Comfortably. Conveniently. Without ever once intending to keep me permanently. The next morning I woke before him. Made coffee, out of habit, or maybe one last strange tenderness, left his mug on the counter and didn't touch mine. While he slept, I opened my notes app and made a list. Not an emotional list. A practical one. What was mine? What I had brought into this apartment. What I had quietly accumulated over 3 years of being just there. It was more than I expected. That told me something. He woke at 9, came to the kitchen, kissed my cheek like any ordinary morning, because for him, it was. He poured his coffee, checked his phone, asked if I wanted to order breakfast. I said I wasn't hungry. I smiled. He noticed nothing. That was the moment I understood, not just that he had said those words, but that he had never truly learned to see me. Not in 3 years. Not once. And the most heartbreaking part was not the betrayal. It was how easy it had been for him. How natural. How completely unguarded, because it had never occurred to him, not even for a second, that I might be listening. I waited until he left for the gym. The moment the door clicked shut I moved, not frantically, but with the clean quiet efficiency of someone who had rehearsed this 100 times already while lying beside him in the dark. 2 bags. Only what was truly mine. My books, my charger, the small framed photo of my mother, the succulent on the windowsill that he had never once watered in 3 years, not once, and somehow that small detail made everything perfectly, painfully clear. I left his key on the kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. No last words, because he had already given us both enough of those. I closed the door behind me softly. The way you close a door when someone is sleeping and you don't want to wake them. Gently. Completely. Without looking back. He called at 2 p.m. I watched the phone light up, felt my heart tighten exactly once, and let it ring. What happened next, I did not expect. Not any of it. He called 7 times that day. Texted twice, both casual at first, "Hey, you okay?" and then, "Where are you?" As if I had simply stepped out for groceries and was taking unusually long. It took him until evening to understand that I wasn't coming back. His 8th message finally dropped the pretense entirely. "Sarah, what's going on? Call me." I read every message. I replied to none. Not out of cruelty, but because I had nothing left to say that his own words hadn't already answered. I stayed with my friend Lena those first few nights. She asked no questions, made up the sofa bed, handed me a cup of tea, and sat with me in comfortable silence. That was all I needed, someone who made space without demanding I fill it with explanations. I slept better than I had in months. Deeply, quietly, without that low hum of anxiety I had apparently been carrying so long I had stopped noticing it. That told me something important about what I had been living inside without realizing it. Daniel escalated slowly, then all at once. By the 3rd day he had moved from confused to genuinely panicked. His messages shifted, "What's going on?" becoming, "Please talk to me," becoming, finally, a voice note I played only once, his voice unsteady, saying he didn't understand, saying he loved me, saying whatever he did he was sorry. I sat with that voice note for a long time. I felt the pull of it, that deep familiar gravity that 3 years quietly builds around you. The version of me from 1 week earlier would have called him back immediately, flooded with relief just to hear the word love in his voice. But I had stood in a dark hallway and heard something realer than a voice note recorded in panic. And I could not unhear it. I met him once. 2 weeks later, a coffee shop, neutral ground, my choice, my timing. He looked tired. Smaller somehow, the way people look when certainty has been temporarily removed from their face. He asked what happened. I told him everything, calmly, completely, without tears, not because it didn't hurt but because I had already done my crying privately, in the way I do everything that truly matters. His face moved through confusion, then defensiveness, then something that finally settled into genuine shame. He said it wasn't serious. Just guys talking. He didn't mean it. I listened to every word without interrupting. And when he finished, I said something I had been quietly turning over for 2 weeks, something that had arrived not in anger but in clarity. "Daniel, I believe you care about me. I think you even love me, in the way a person loves something familiar and warm and easy. But I don't want to be someone's comfortable. I want to be someone's certain." He had no answer. There wasn't one. I finished my coffee. Picked up my bag. Walked out into the afternoon light and felt, for the first time in longer than I could remember, that the ground beneath my feet was completely solid. Not shaky with hope. Not hollow with doubt. Solid. Real. Mine. People sometimes ask if leaving without a word was too cold. And I tell them the same thing every time, I didn't leave without a word. He had already said all the words. I finally just believed them. I went home that evening, my new room at Lena's, small and quiet and entirely my own, and I sat by the window and thought about something I wished someone had told me years earlier. Not about Daniel. Not about relationships. About listening. We spend so much of our lives waiting for people to show us who they are, waiting for proof, for clarity, for the moment that makes it all undeniable. But most of the time, people show us exactly who they are long before that moment arrives. In small comments. Inconvenient silences. In the way someone talks about you when the lights are low and they believe no one who loves them is listening. The mistake is not in missing those signs. The mistake is in hearing them clearly, and choosing, out of hope or habit or fear, to believe we misheard. I had stood in a dark hallway in my socks at midnight and been given a gift I didn't ask for, the unedited truth. And the most important thing I ever did for myself was resist the urge to soften it, explain it away, or walk back to bed and pretend the silence was still safe. Some people show you exactly who they are when they think you cannot hear them. Believe them. Quietly, completely, and without waiting for a second opinion, believe them the very first time.